At the end of 2025, devastating floods and landslides struck North Sumatra, claiming thousands of lives and leaving hundreds of thousands displaced. Behind this human tragedy lies a preventable cause: massive deforestation. Now the government is suing six companies for 4.8 trillion rupiah. Is this a real step toward ecological justice? Stay with us for the full report. At the end of 2025, flash floods and massive landslides hit the regions of North Tapanuli, Central Tapanuli, and South Tapanuli in North Sumatra. Thousands lost their lives. More than 165,000 people were forced into inadequate evacuation conditions. Infrastructure was destroyed and livelihoods were completely paralyzed. This disaster was not merely a natural calamity. Massive deforestation in the upstream river areas significantly worsened everything. Now, the Ministry of Environment is taking bold legal action, filing lawsuits against six major companies: NSHE Company, AR Company, TPL Company, PN Company, MST Company, and TBS Company, in courts in Medan and Jakarta. The total compensation reaches 4.8 trillion rupiah, including 4.65 trillion rupiah for environmental damage and 178 billion rupiah for ecosystem restoration over the loss of more than 2,500 hectares in the Batang Toru and Garuga watersheds. The polluter pays principle is being enforced through strict liability, without needing proof of fault. Environment Minister Hanif Faisal Nurofik stated firmly, the state cannot remain silent in the face of lost environmental functions, disrupted livelihoods, and ongoing ecological disaster threats that continue to undermine public sense of security. The activities of these companies, such as land clearing for plantation, industry, and related projects, have massively eliminated the forest water absorption capacity. As a result, flash floods and landslides become far more severe and deadly. The ecological impacts are deeply tragic. The habitat of Tapanuli orangutan, the world's rarest species with a limited population, suffered significant destruction. One endemic primate was found dead, buried under mud and debris after the floods. This damage not only threatens the unique biodiversity of Badang Toru, but also triggers forced wildlife migration, ongoing ecosystem degradation, and increased regional vulnerability to similar disaster, and intensifying climate crisis. The floods have shown just how fragile the natural balance becomes when upstream forests are replaced by open land without responsible management. While this lawsuit has been welcomed positively as a form of ecological justice, sharp criticism has come from leading environmental organizations such as WALHI, Greenpeace, and ICAL. They argue the lawsuit is too late. The claim amount is insufficient for full ecosystem recovery from severe damage, and previous civil mechanisms have often failed in execution. Only a small portion of similar past rulings have actually been realized. Activists are demanding a stronger multi-door approach, not just civil lawsuits, but also criminal enforcement for deterrence, including asset freezes, permanent permit revocation, and even imprisonment for negligent business owner. The revocation of permits for dozens of companies is a good initial step, but post-permit supervision remains a weak point in the current system. These 4.8 trillion rupiah lawsuits must become a turning point for comprehensive national environmental policy reform. Economic growth can no longer come at the expense of forests that serve as natural buffers against disasters. Funds obtained from the lawsuit needs to be allocated transparently and accountably for damaged ecosystem restoration, direct support for flood and landslide victims, and protection of endangered species like the Tapanuli orangutan. Without consistent law enforcement, strict business permit oversight, and prevention of deforestation in sensitive areas, Indonesia risks repeating the same cycle: deforestation, ecological disasters, and ongoing suffering for the people. Now is the time for the state to prove its commitment, not just through courtroom lawsuits, but through real prevention, sustainable ecosystem recovery, and protections of the living rights of communities and nature for future generations. That concludes our in-depth report on the historic of 4.8 trillion rupiah lawsuits following the 2025 Sumatra ecological disaster. Will this change Indonesia's environmental governance for the better? We will continue to monitor the developments. Thank you for watching. Greetings for the environment, and let's protect nature together.